Hi everyone, I'm Kimmy Hatzma with Lumerize, and today we have a special guest with us, and his name is Mike Harvey, and he is here to share his story with all of you. So Mike, I want to welcome you.
Hey, Kim, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate this very much.
Absolutely.
So we want to go ahead and just start off with you telling a little bit about your story, where you were, kind of like how you came to realize that you needed recovery, and then what it looks like as you were going through recovery, and then maybe a little bit about where you are right now.
So, as Kim said, my name is Mike, and I am a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I've had struggles with addictions for many years. Today, I am almost sober 20 years, so I'm very proud of that. But before addiction, I was raised by my grandparents, and it was not so fun in the household. My grandfather was a very abusive and mentally and physically to me and all my aunts that lived in the house. And it was just a rough time. And I do believe that that led to the start of my addictions when I was 13 years old. So, I had to navigate the best way I could to get through some very rough times as a teenager, as a young adult.
What led you to actually step into recovery?
So there was a point in my life where I knew that I was going to hit rock bottom. And for a few years, it was really bad with my drinking and my drugs. I was a functional alcoholic for a long time. And then it got to a point where I was no longer a functional alcoholic. So it took a real toll on my life. And then I committed a crime where I robbed a convenience store, and that was my true rock bottom, and caused me to go to prison for 5 years. And while I was in prison, I'd learned to deal with recovery and finding the Lord and having Jesus in my life, and realizing that there was a better life out there for me than just the drugs and the alcohol.
When you got out of prison, what was the next steps? What did you have to do to make sure you stayed in recovery?
So when I got out of prison, I knew that the one thing that I had was to continue to attend church. I had met a couple of people while I was in prison that came to visit, and I was able to go to their church when I got out. I knew I still needed Jesus as the center of my life. I did not know what that was going to look like. I started attending AA and NA through my supervised probation. And about 2 years after that, I realized I needed something a little bit more than just secular recovery. So I did some research on Celebrate Recovery, and that led me to a whole new chapter in my life. And it's been going strong for almost 9 years now. So we're super excited where that's all taken us.
Going back to rock bottom, how did addiction impact your relationships, career, and sense of self?
Well, we'll start with the career-wise. A lot of jobs I would lose because I would either be drunk or high, and I couldn't make it to work. I did get married at a very young age. I had three beautiful children from that marriage that I have relationships with today. That's given me beautiful grandchildren. But the drugs and the alcohol could not. I could not function properly while I was working. And then it ended up ruining my first marriage. Um, I was just really broken, and I did not know how to deal with that. And I used the drugs and I used the alcohol to numb all that pain and escape all the problems that were in my life.
So, what about relationships? How did that impact, other than your marriage falling apart? What other types of relationships? Because I know there's amends that had to be made and those kinds of things.
After I got divorced, I had about a 10-year period where um, I did a lot of bad things to a lot of people, and I'm not proud of any of them. Uh, but being able to go back and have conversations with some of those people, being able to go back and tell those people that I was sorry for all the things that I did. There's many folks that I can't do that with for one reason or another. Some of them I don't even remember who they are, so it's difficult for me to be able to do that. Um, Having a relationship when it came to girlfriends, there were a couple in my life, but they were all surrounded by drugs and alcohol. Uh, they weren't really relationships; they were just conveniences in my life. So it was difficult. It was difficult to navigate all that. And as of today, I still am trying to reach out to people to show them that I'm a different person and how sorry I was for all the things that I did.
I know that's an important part of recovery, so thank you for sharing that with us. Did you ever believe that your life was beyond repair?
For about 30 years, I
Wow.
never thought that I was able to stop drinking and stop using drugs. Um, when I was 13, it was really numbing the pain for me that I was going through, and I didn't even know I really had all that pain till later in life when I really dug deep and started talking about it and dealing with it. But I just couldn't handle life, and I just thought I would never able to get on track the right way. Um, every time that I went out, I always thought I might not come home tonight. Tonight might be the night that I not make it. And I just didn't care, to be honest. I didn't care if I got sober. I didn't care if I fixed my relationship with my family and my children. It was all about me. And that was, those were difficult choices, but they were easy at the time to make because the drugs and the alcohol were so powerful.
And it sounds to me more like it was not you, it was the addiction.
It absolutely was. So, but even though the addiction is what caused me to do things, I still made those decisions.
Yes.
So I still have to take accountability for it.
When did you first begin to believe that recovery was possible?
About that same time when I started going to church in prison and started meeting some people from the outside that would come in and preach to us, um, they made me believe you can continue to do this. That you don't have to drink and use drugs. That was a thing in my life to where, my anger would overtake a lot of things, and my depression and my anxiety and my suicidal tendencies, all those would rear its ugly head. And I knew that getting sober and staying sober would give me the opportunity to be able to work on those things. Where if I was drinking, I would never be able to try to work on those things. They would work on me.
Right.
And so uh, it was not a hard decision to make once I started seeing things change in my life. Even though I was in prison and I was just laying around not doing much, I could still see a change in the way I acted. I could see the change in the way that I carried myself, and I like that person a whole lot better than the other person.
So you had a lot of influences that you reached out to while
Yeah.
you were in prison that helped you even when you got out, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's funny. They always ask me who my sponsor is, and I always tell them that my sponsor comes from AA, and that, well, you can't have an AA sponsor and do Celebrate Recovery, but my AA sponsor loves Jesus, so I was able to share with him what I was going through. He was the very first person to speak to me when I walked in my very first AA meeting after getting out of prison, and he's been my friend now for 15 years. So that's been a great relationship. And then some of the other folks that have encouraged me along the way. One of them being my wife now.
Yes.
So it's been a great time.
You spent many years involved in AA. What did that experience teach you?
It taught me that sobriety can be had. It taught me that you can get clean and stay clean. Um, I I did need something else though. You know, as much as I love secular recovery, I still needed that something else. So AA was like, I'm going to help save your life, and then I'm going to send you out in the world and let you do something different. And that's what AA and NA did for me.
Were there times when you wanted to quit recovery?
Never had a moment where after when I was in prison, I had no choice but to stay clean and sober because I could not afford all the stuff that was coming in through the prison. Um, and then when I got out, it was just that first year of intense supervised probation that I was on. There was just absolutely no way I was going to be able to drink or use any drug without violating my probation and then getting to have to do the other 20 years,
Oh,
which I would still be in prison today if that would have happened. Once I was, as we say, back on the street for a year, um, I've never had a thought about using drugs or drinking. There have been some lean times over these last 15 years since I've been out of prison, but never once
that's
have I
amazing.
ever went home and told my wife, I wish I had a drink tonight. Never happened.
Wow.
You know, you change your people, places, and things. And sometimes you got to, even if you know you're good, you still have to stick with that. One of the things that has kept me sober is I don't put myself in a position to where I might be tempted. And a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people think, oh, I've been sober, 8 years, so I can go in bars and watch people drink. Well, you might be able to do that, but that temptation can creep up on you when you least expect it. So I did my best not to ever put myself in that spot. So I've been around people drinking a lot, and I'm okay with that. Now, what I have not done is been around anybody using any drugs. And
Hmm.
I will not put myself in that position at all whatsoever because I don't know if that temptation would ever arise if I was ever stared in the face with it. So if you just don't put yourself in that spot, you have nothing to worry about.
Right. So, what habits, practices, or principles helped you stay on the path, that road?
Yeah, it's been recovery groups.
Hmm.
Um, the first thing that my wife and I decided when we were became homeowners were that we were going to open our house up for Jesus, and having small groups in our house and having community. The big thing for me was always community. Um, I drank and I used drugs a lot alone,
Hmm.
and that's a deadly mixture.
Hmm.
And I didn't ever want to be sober and be alone, whether it was in a relationship or just community. Um, people don't understand community is a big part of um, staying on the right track and keeping you going right.
So, now we're going to move on to redemption. Um, was there a moment when you felt truly forgiven or redeemed? And what did that look like for you?
It took a little while. Um, when I started when I started forgiving my grandfather for all the horrible things that he put me through as a child, uh, I started realizing then that maybe I could forgive myself for the things that I did. And being able to have conversations with people and say, hey, look, I know those times were not good. I'm sorry. Uh, that went a long way with me being, hey, Mike, it's okay. You can forgive yourself now. You can give yourself a little grace,
Mhm.
which is so difficult for people to, we talk about the three things of forgiveness. Uh, accept God's forgiveness, forgive somebody else, and forgive yourself. But forgive yourself is difficult.
Mhm.
Um, but you have to give yourself grace and do that. And I got to a point finally when I was able to do that. And it's kept me on the right path. You know, uh, there's still tough days,
Mhm.
but they're easier to get through in the long run, like this than it was before.
How did you move from surviving your past to learning from it?
Well, when we started, it really all started when we started Celebrate Recovery and having people come in and tell their stories of how broken they are and all the things that they are went through or are currently going through. Um, I've always said in the past, God had put me through every situation He ever put me through, so I would never be surprised when somebody came in with a story where I could not help them with it. You know, we I I just feel like there's nothing that somebody might come in and say that happened to them or something they did that I can't uh, that I can't, refer to because I haven't been through it myself. So that makes it easier for me to continue on through life, knowing that I've been through those struggles and I've been through that stuff. And as we say, been around the block once or twice to
Mm-hmm.
where I can help folks, better themselves.
Looking back, could you have imagined this purpose for your life while you were struggling with addiction?
I asked I asked one of my friends the other day. Um, he came and watched me preach over Christmas break, um, and I said, "Hey, bud, could you have ever imagined that you would be sitting in church and I'd be on stage talking to you about church?" And he said, "Not in a million years. There's no way you could have ever told me 30 years ago when I was actively using that one day I'm going to help people save lives and I'm going to speak to the people and talk about Jesus." There was no Jesus in my life when I was growing up. I knew what the word was. I had no idea who he was. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it, it just would have never happened.
So, what would you say to a family member who has almost given up on a loved one struggling with addiction?
I would tell them that they need to keep supporting them. You know, they can't do the journey for them. It's the addictive person. It's their journey to walk, but it's much harder for that person to walk that journey if they're doing it alone. Now, we already learned that we can't do this alone, that we always need somebody by our side. And a lot of times when it's an addictive behavior that somebody's displaying, it's got to be a family member usually that walks alongside them. It was my aunt for me. So, that got me going on the right track. Um, but when your family gives up on you, it makes it really difficult to pull yourself out of the muck, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
to continue to do your sobriety and stuff.
What have you learned about hope throughout your journey?
I know that there's a lot of hope out there. I have found out over the years that I can accomplish anything that I set my mind to, and I have a future now, and
Mm-hmm.
I have a hope for a better future moving forward from today. And I just know that with God's grace and God, you know, directing my traffic and leading my way, that there's always going to be hope for a future for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it says it right in the Serenity Prayer.
Yes, I love
Hope for a
that.
future. So
One last question. If someone watching is at their rock bottom right now, what would you want them to know?
there's somebody out there that will help you. The biggest thing that we talk about at Celebrate Recovery is before you do something that you're going to regret later, pick the phone up and call somebody. That's what the support group's all about. Just pick the phone up and call a friend, call a family member, call anybody that you might trust, call a hotline. If you need to call a hotline, just whatever you do, just don't not do anything because you're going to do something you're going to regret later if you don't. And that's why we encourage people to get phone numbers at Celebrate Recovery. So
Mm-hmm.
you have somebody that you can call when you need to, or somebody can, as we say, talk you off the ledge. Uh, when you might be getting ready to do something, I still call people today, you know, when I get
Mm-hmm.
angry or when I get anxiety real bad or I get depressed, my wife will tell you, she says it all the time. You need to go call somebody.
Mm.
And I'll go get my phone and, call one of my accountability partners, talk it out, you know, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm no better than the next one.
Yes. So thank you, Mike, so
You're welcome.
much for your time and your wisdom and your answers. We are very appreciative of all that you have contributed to the world, to this church, and
Yes.
to all the lives that you have touched.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And we want to thank everyone at Luma Rise and everyone that comes to our website and visits and watches these videos. These are all out there for you so that you have someone that you can relate to. Visit us at www.lumarise.net, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.